Hello and welcome to the Service Management Show from the team here at Eficode. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about practical uses, really, of artificial intelligence in service management. I'm joined today by Simon, who I'll let introduce himself.
Hey, Gary, good to see you again. I'm Simon Bradford. I look after the ITSM or the JSM team solution engineers in EMEA for Atlassian.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yes, indeed. And I forgot to introduce myself. I do this every show. It's such an amateur. And I'm the IT service management practice lead for Eficode in the UK and the host of this podcast. Right. So, Simon and I were just having a really good chat, actually, just from the hero forward. So, what we want to do today is really sort of talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in service management in a more practical way, the way in which it can be used in a way that's going to really enhance your business and not necessarily the chatbot hell or the scary stories that you might read in the press. But start with, Simon, do you want to just briefly talk about, your history and your kind of exposure to things like artificial intelligence?
Yeah, sure, Gary. I mean, it's an interesting conversation, actually, because, I mean, when you first messaged me, Simon, can we do a podcast? And I'm like, yeah, what should we talk about? Should we talk about service management, ITIL? Let's talk about AI. And I'm like, what can I say about AI? And you kind of realize that it's part of your everyday, and you assume it's going to work for you, but you don't really think, how actually is it working for me? So I was thinking back, and some of the things I was thinking about is how we do virtual assistant and chat at the moment and how that looks. And I think back to my experience. I've worked in pre-sales for a number of years. I used to work for a big telco company, and we had for internal support, we used a chatbot. The telephony was turned off because it was easier to use the chatbot. Mm-hmm. And the only way you could get any good answers and information out of it was really scripting what you wanted to put in there to say what you wanted. And then the feedback we had was dire. I had a lot of people saying that this isn't not working for us. This is really not helping. Mm-hmm. And I think back then it gave chatbots and chat a bad message. Mm-hmm. And people were very, very reluctant to use them. I mean, I think forward now, I mean, there's a lot of changed. The way, I mean, we look at virtual agent we're using now. Yeah, I was talking to a customer who works for a utility company. They just implemented it, and he was, well, first of all, what he did is he used Atlassian intelligence to look at the requests he was getting coming through already. So first of all, you can do a triage on the requests you've got to see what category they are and what type they are. I think that's the biggest issue. You've got a vast amount of data and you don't know what this data is telling you. Yeah. So he was able to help him see what the biggest hitters in terms of tickets were. And if you think about service management, one of the key words that we've been saying for a while is ticket deflection or shift left. So how can you get as much information that the resolution you've got closer to the point of source, and how can you help people help themselves? But by doing it in a way that you can assist them. And one of the things that he was doing is like, Simon, we were getting people asking us to spin up AWS instances because they wanted to test some of the applications. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I didn't know where he was going with this conversation. And he said, look, watch this. And he showed me. Yeah, he said, look, okay. He goes, can you create an AWS instance piece for me for this application? And he's typing this into the Slack channel, yeah. And I'm watching what comes back, and it comes back in seconds. It comes back and goes, I see you want to create an AWS instance. Okay. What account is this built to? What application is this going to be before? Who wants to manage it? And it's asking these questions. So it's already working out where the questions are going. Yeah. And it says, we'll update you when we've created the instance for you. And he shows me this, and it shows him the update of where it's coming through. And in 30 minutes, it produces a link to this AWS instance. Says, here's your instance that's been created, yeah. And I was thinking back to this. I used to work for a hosting company, and we used to provide AWS instances for our customers that we used to set up. It would take us days, and that's using a portal approach. And here we've done it in like 30 minutes. Yeah. So from a productivity point of view, it's great. And you've not even hit a service desk agent. So it's all fully automated, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this kind of goes to the heart of the matter, really. And, we were talking before that I was saying that what we call AI, artificial intelligence, actually been around for 50 odd years. It's not a new concept at all. And all that's really changed is the compute power has increased. And so you can do a lot more with it. And I remember back in my student days, quite a long time ago now, we were using a programming language called Prolog, which is one of the first sort of mainstream AI languages, if you want to call it that. And all that really happens today is those Prolog transactions. Prolog, basically, you would create lots of relationships within it, and then based on input that you put, the AI would be able to work out the relationships and then give you an answer. And that's just like the early stages of neural networks and machine learning. All they did when they took those basic principles and they sort of expanded them out, made them huge, and added lots of compute power. And they put a decision engine in and all that kind of stuff. But that's all they did. They went from kind of basic automation through to neural networks, which are another form of automation, but better at sort of pattern recognition. And then through to what we have today with generative AI, which is just massive data sets and a lot more compute. But ultimately, it's still the same thing. It's just automation. I think you were saying that, there was a time people were saying, it's going to end the world and, it's going to make everyone redundant. But it's just a natural progression, I think, of providing better and more flexible automation. And I think your example is a good example of that.
No, thanks, Gary. I think it's interesting because I know if you think about the areas that you and I work, Gary, it's about a lot of people we talk to, I wouldn't say they don't get technology, but they don't appreciate how technology can help them. And I think one of the key parts of our job is how do you make technology accessible to people? And like you said, as soon as you start talking about AI, oh my word, you're going to end the world. I went for a blood test this morning, and I went to see my GP this morning as well. So the first one was my blood test, and the nurse and I have a really good rapport. She's in her late 50s, really looking at changing her career, but doesn't really know how to. And what she wants to do is she wants to become an inspector for the Care Quality Commission. Yeah, it's been an aspiration of hers. Mm-hmm. And I always ask her, how are you getting on? You're still here? I thought you'd moved on by now and followed your career path. So she says, oh no, I can't. I'm too scared. I don't know how to do the exams. I don't know what's required of me. And there's a point to what I'm saying. So I'm like, have you Googled it? And you can just see the fear in her eyes. She's an excellent nurse practitioner. She knows her job. She knows what she's doing. She knows more about medicine than I ever will know, yeah? Mm. But when it comes to technology, she closes down. And I'm like, have you heard of ChatGPT? So I showed her ChatGPT, and I just typed in there, what do I need to do to be a care quality examiner? And it gave her a list of stuff. And she looked at it and she could relate to that straight away because she knew what it was. Mm-hmm. She's like, is it that easy? I said, it's not so much making it easy, but it's making it accessible and empowering you to do that. Yeah. So then I went on to my next appointment with my doctor, and I got talking to him, and he says, Simon, last time we saw each other was this time last year. I'm like, yeah, I know. Sorry, doctor, coming for my annual checkup. And he's like, you told me that AI is going to take over the world. Where are we now? And I'm like, and I gave him some examples about how I use AI, which I'll cover off in a minute about I use it in my job. But I said, for example, with you, I've just walked in to see you. You see hundreds of patients. Already, imagine if AI was working for you, you could pull up my notes. You could see all my consultant notes. It could pull out anything in there from the consultant letter that is important for you to see straight away. And it could highlight that onto my records. That's not taking your job. That's helping you do your job so that all the time that you spend doing this admin work, which takes you away from your patient, enables you to speak to your patient more and understand them and look for the things that you wouldn't necessarily spot, like how are they feeling, what's their body language, what's their demeanor. Whereas the AI is helping you point out the stuff that you would probably miss. And I said, for example, what we do, we use AI when we talk on Zoom chats, and I go through these AI transcripts afterwards because there's always something I miss. It's like having a second pair of ears that's listening. Yeah. That you can go, oh, by the way, the customer said this, and I missed on that, and I can follow that up now and do that. So this is where I think the point I'm trying to make, and you get this as well, Gary, is how do we make our technology using AI more accessible to us so it enables us to do our jobs better and get on with the stuff that we want to do rather than the admin and the mundane jobs that we could potentially automate and get our to handle.
Exactly. I mean, all three examples you gave there, it is possible for someone to go away and find out that information in a kind of analog way. You know, that the first lady you spoke about, she could go to a local library, she could make some phone calls, she could find out that information for herself. So all ChatGPT did was do the search for her, read the information, consolidate it down into a readable format and present it to her really quickly. So it's that accelerator, it's that so as we said, sort of super-powered automation really, which is what it's about, rather than trying to replace what people do. Because ultimately, the human is making the ultimate decision. And I think when it comes to service management, I think that's a key tip. I've been to a couple of sort of service management conferences where there's been like AI discussions, and the general feeling, I think you alluded to earlier with like bad chatbots, is that the chatbot doesn't feel like it's there for the customer. The chatbot just feels like it's there as a barrier, and that's often a poorly implemented chatbot. Yeah. Rather than the example you gave of AWS, where the chatbot is not really a barrier there; it's an enabler. If someone asks a question and the chatbot kind of detects that this is a common request, and it knows what to do with that common request, and says, "Well, I can do that for you," as opposed to sort of saying, "No, go away. I can't answer that." Computer says no.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because you probably heard more and more now we're talking about, instead of service level agreements, we're talking about experience level.
Oh, it's my favourite subject.
I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And this is where I think we start talking about what is your experience? What is your experience like? How has this been enhanced? I mean, we use Zoom, virtual company, since COVID, all working remotely, works incredibly well. I had some challenges with Zoom. So Zoom was implementing updates very, very quickly because it was keeping pace. I had some challenges with some of the things I was trying to do with Zoom. And I ended up chatting to Zoom technical support directly, and they said, look, we need to install something on your machine to enable us to track the logs on what you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, I feel very well, but I mean, it's a company machine. I need to get at least some sort of approval that's going to happen. So I went into the, we'll call it Help IT Slack channel. Yeah. And I'm like, this is my problem. Zoom tech support are trying to help me with a technical problem I've got on Zoom. They want access to my machine to install an app to track the logs. Am I allowed to do this? And this is how I typed it. I didn't type it in technical. I typed it in verbatim. That's what and it came back and said, looks like you're having problems with Zoom. I'm like, yeah. Looks like you want to install an app to track Zoom logs. Yeah. We fully support what Zoom tech support are trying to do. You've got admin rights on your machine. Please go ahead and do that and let us know if you need anything else. That was like 15 seconds, Gary.
Yeah.
It was, and this is it, yeah. And now I feel reassured, and I could have probably made that decision myself, but I wanted to make sure that I wasn't falling foul of any privacy or security issues that we had within the company, and that helped me out. And this is where, to your point, it's an enabler, yeah.
Yeah.
And if you flip this around, I mean, you made a really good point by saying, well, by putting a chatbot in place helps the company deflect issues to telephony. Straight away, your metrics going to show you, oh, great, we've had no telephony calls coming out. We must be working. Doing
it's the classic watermelon of the green on the outside, red in the middle. Yeah,
exactly. But I mean, I think the thing is, if you look at it from a service management point of view, if you're a service manager, you can be using Atlassian intelligence now to be really looking at what is it in the JSM space. What tickets are you getting coming through? Yeah, you've been given a challenge of reducing your service desk headcount. You're not just going to cut your headcount. You need to be really intelligent about how you're going to do that. So use the Atlassian intelligence part of JSM to triage and categorize your requests that are coming through. Yeah. So straight away, you can then start seeing where your problem areas are. And talking about problem areas, you can turn these incidents automatically using that Atlassian intelligence into PIRs, post-incident reviews for your problem managers. So you can then really start getting to the crux of what's causing these incidents you're coming through. And you can see what's happening in terms of volume of requests coming through. The beauty of AI and Atlassian intelligence, it takes massive amounts of data and it puts it into a format that you could easily use.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things, and I was looking through this because I'm like, right, what can I talk about? And I'm just looking through my notes now. Yeah. Some of the things that I even found this out today. So you said to me at the beginning of the call, you were away last week. Yeah. We had an offsite in San Francisco, really good session. And I'm like, I need to share this with the team, but I need to do it in such a way that it's quite succinct without giving them too much verbiage, but the ability to drill down into it. So I love conference pages. So I write conference pages. I'm writing all this down. And I look at it, I'm going, there's too much here. There's too much here, yeah? So straight away, using Atlassian intelligence, you've got the ability to shorten what you're writing. You can summarize it. You can summarize it as a viewer and you can summarize it as a creator. So you've got two options there. You can improve your tone, so you can make it friendly, professional. It's amazing, isn't it? Spell check. I mean, sometimes we come across when we talk colloquially, but when you write, you want to be a bit more professional, so you can professionalize it for you and make it a lot more visible and easy on the eye. But the other thing as well that it did is I was going to work yesterday, and I'm like, I've got jet lag. I don't really want to work on Sunday if I can. So I'm like, let me do it Monday. And I wanted to put it into a presentation that I could share with the team very quickly. So I looked at Atlassian Intelligence, because there's always new features coming out. Yep. And it had make this into a presentation. And I clicked that, and I kid you not, what would have taken me, I guess, about 2 hours to write a presentation, slide deck, etc. It did it in about 10 seconds. Yeah. There was a couple of tweaks I had to make to it just to make it something that, so you're still in control. Yeah. It doesn't take over. You've still got the ability to offer what you're trying to say and the message you want to put across. But it put what I want into very succinct bullet points onto a presentation page on Confluence that I could share with my team easily. And they straight away can see that. And as you're presenting this to your teams, you can then go into more detail should you need to on what that looks like. Now that I think, Gary, that's a time saver. Yeah, that's not taking my job away from me. No, that's helping me and our customers who use our solutions get the most out of what they're trying to do.
Yeah. Definitely. And I mean, the ability to change the tone of the language, I think that's really important for kind of help desk teams where they're corresponding to a customer through the help desk, through the portal, because you can kind of write your response and then get it to sort of shape it into the format you like, or even translate it, which, both those things that's just absolutely magical that you can do.
Oh, yeah. The translation part is amazing, yeah?
Yeah. And then again, this is just an enabler. You have said, you've said what you want to say, but you've just made it more professional and more comprehensive to the person that's reading it, so that hopefully the interaction you have with that customer is better. The other recent innovation, which Atlassian have included, and a couple of other vendors started to as well, is this concept of sentiment. So when a ticket's raised, this comes back to the experience manager, and I say it's my favorite subject. It's about getting to the heart. If a customer asks you for something and you're providing a service, sometimes it's not always obvious what the customer wants. And also, it's not always obvious how the customer feels about that particular thing. Are they frustrated that it's broken or it's not working? Are they in anticipation of a deadline and they need something urgently? Are they fairly relaxed about it and they're just sort of making a general request because they need something? And that ability for the AI to kind of read what the customer asks and just to provide you a little flag to say what their sentiment is, as a service manager, that's fantastic for your team who are doing the triage, because they can immediately see the tickets that they probably need to be the most concerned about. They can even organize it by sentiment. And those sorts of little innovations, that's kind of passive AI. I mean, some of the AI we talked about is more sort of active, where you're taking something and you're doing something with it, or you're using a virtual aid. But even things like passive AI, where it's doing the heavy lifting for you and even sort of trying to help you make a decision, I think is superb.
And from that point, you're quite right, because if you get a customer who's really irate and has got a significant problem and you pick up on that and you can turn that around for them, imagine the experience they would have received from your team and teams. Yeah. And imagine how that's going to make them feel in terms of XLAs again. Yeah. And about what we're doing that's good. And they're going to be absolutely delighted, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's nothing worse. Like you get like a keyboard warrior ticket, and you can also write a bit of a keyboard warrior response. But of course, what you can do, you can just sort of just say, okay, rewrite this as a passive response, and that can even have like a calming influence on the individual, you hope. Yeah. So, I was going to just sort of segue a bit into sort of top tips or things that we've seen that customers have done. You've mentioned one. I had a similar customer to you actually, who's in the gaming industry, who did something similar where they did some fantastic automation where, like you said, when someone would ask a question of their internal IT, if it was a kind of routine thing which they could just trigger off a request to another system to enable or do, then they did that and they put loads in. And it was so clever. Like if you say you forgot your password and you wanted your password reset, it would do the authorization and it would then do the password reset all for you. It was really, so just simple things like that, which, as you know, if you didn't have a level of automation, you'd be relying on sending an email to someone to say, can you approve this, getting the email back, doing the password reset, sending the new temporary password to the person. It just eliminates all that kind of faff, really. What's the sort of general advice that either you or fellow Atlassians give to a customer when they're first sort of on this journey with
Well, it's interesting you say that, because one of the first things I did, Gary, is like, Gary, you approached me, Simon, let's talk about AI. I've got to do it. The first thing I did was I went into Atlassian Intelligence, or we're using the Agent Rovo, which is due to be released later on this year, which is Atlassian Intelligence, but as a standalone app. And I asked the question, because, we drink our own champagne and we use it a lot. And there's a couple of things I said in there is, how can we benefit from automation, Atlassian Intelligence, and what tasks can Atlassian Intelligence automate? And I'm reading off the list because there's such a long list. I don't want to fall foul of missing any, but for example, the virtual agents we talked about, you can automate your responses to common queries in Jira Service Manager. I mean, that is powerful in its own right. So you're sitting there, you're trying to set up virtual agent, then use Atlassian Intelligence to help you do that. And it can help you get a feel for some of the best you've got coming through. The natural language automation we've talked about already, which is, I think it's superb. This whole, you need to, if you've communicated with your banks, a lot of service industries are using this now, is really thinking about what your language is, and you can put across what you want to do, and it can pick up on that. Service desk creation is a key part. When you're sitting there and you're going, right, I need to set up my service desk project. What does this look like? What it can do is it can set them up for you with predefined workflows, request types, forms, and fields. Now, imagine how long that would take normally. Yeah? So it takes a lot of that pain away from you. Content generation and transformation for some of your project plans, or just in your writing tone, summarize your content, clean up writing, and the sentiment part you picked up on, which is really good. Issue management. So you look at the issues that are coming through from an incident management point of view, for example, you can summarize the activity history. Now, you're an agent and you're looking at a request come through, you're not going to read through, oh, hold on, caller, let me just put you on hold. Let me just look at this for 10 minutes and I'll come back to you. None of that. You've got your summary straight of way of what's been going on, where it's coming from, that lets you really get to the root of resolving this issue that you've got in front of you. And also your triage. How important is this? Have you got someone that's landed that's affecting one person or 1,000 people? Yeah. What are we talking about in terms of service impact? Knowledge-based utilization. So how do you get responses based on information in your knowledge base, and how can you repurpose these to create something new? That's an important one. Knowledge is good, but how it works well out there. Your work breakdown, working down your epics into issues, or your issues into subtasks. Your smart answers in Confluence. How can you answer your questions in Confluence search based on information? I mean, one of the biggest things is Confluence is an amazing solution out there. The vast amounts of information, and how do you really find what you want? I was updating an OKR for one of my other teams. The team lead was off sick. They had an OKR that they had just completed. We needed to put a summary in there for them. I knew a little bit about what they were asking for, but I put the question in is, what contribution have we made to this OKR this year? And you put it in and it came up straight away, a list of things it picked up from conference pages where there have been action plans and project posters. And I could look through this and I could go, yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. That I'm not sure about. So I'll probably double check that answer before I use it. But straight away, something which would have probably taken me days to do, using Atlassian Intelligence enabled me to do something quite succinct and factually correct. I mean, that's the key thing. You're still in control of what you're doing, but in a way that was something that I could easily present back and get the information I want. And the other one I've got is the integration with third-party apps such as Google Docs, MS Office, and Slack, and how that looks as well. Yeah, so there's lots out there.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of this stuff, isn't it, is that you can use it in so many different ways now. One of the things I think when I talk to a customer and they're kind of looking to start, they're kind of embracing some of this technology. I do feel like maybe starting off with some of the passive effects, some of the best places to start. And I think the key thing really to make sure it's really giving you value is to get feedback from both the agents that are using it. So your service desk team are actually using some of these features, but more importantly, ask your customers. So yes. if you're using the virtual agent, for example, and you're using it through Slack and all that sort of stuff, again, wearing my ITSM hat, I think you really should be checking, at least once a quarter, doing some kind of survey to say, how do you feel about this? Does it provide you the response you expect? Does it provide you the responses that you want? And then look to kind of, iterate and improve on that as you move forward. Because I think for some people, some of this stuff does look a bit scary, and for other people, they just want to do everything all at once.
Yeah.
And it's about, going at the pace that's right for your business, and also making use of those things that are going to give you the most value. But certainly, I think if you're worried about using any of these features, I would certainly start off with the passive stuff, like the
definitely
analysis and the ability to rewrite text and things like that. It's a great place to start.
I mean, Gary, you know as well as I do that technology changes constantly. Yeah, I'm looking at Atlassian Intelligence now. There's things that are in there now this week that weren't in there last week.
Yeah,
that's how quickly it changes.
It's impossible to keep up.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the way that I approach this with my team is you find an advocate in your team who embraces some of this and get them to share their journey with the rest of your teams. And slowly you can put your arms around the people you are going to get people who are reluctant. There are going to be people who go, oh my God, this is scary. It's all new. I don't know what to do with it. It's going to take my job. Look, listen to what they're saying to you, but help them see the benefits and the value out of it. Because I mean, when I was approaching this conversation with you today, I'm like, well, I could go in there and talk about the technical aspects of what it is, but the real hooks, I think, for people is how can it help them?
Exactly. Don't worry about how it does it so much. Well, privacy aside, don't worry about how it does it, the technicalities of how it does it, the technicalities of large language models and machine learning and that. I mean, it's all really interesting if you look into it, but ultimately they're just enablers. They're just like, they're that thing that speeds it up. But yeah, think about, certainly you need to consider privacy, and that's an important thing I know you're at Atlassian are very strict on. But like you say, understand how you could use this stuff to deliver value for your team, for your customers, and for your business as a whole. And you don't have to look very far.
No.
Indeed.
And if you can get these hooks, the ones that you're going to go, I like that, it does it well, what else is out there?
Exactly. Right, okay, well, that was a fantastic discussion. I think we'll wrap things up there. Of course, if you've got any views on some of the things we've discussed in this podcast, then do leave a comment in the LinkedIn post or the YouTube video. We'd love to see those, and we do get back to everyone who leaves a comment. Do share the podcast or videocast, whatever you want to call it, with your friends, and like and subscribe on the appropriate platforms. And I'll just finish up by just giving yourself an opportunity for you to sort of plug where they can find you, what you're up to, anything you've got coming up.
Yeah, sure. So Simon Bradford, I'm on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me. I keep a low profile, not by design, but because, I try and sell the virtues of my team. I work with an amazing team of solution engineers who are really good at helping customers get to the best solutions they want and the value out of what we're doing together. So look, Gary, it's been an absolute pleasure being on this podcast with you. And I look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon.
No doubt. We'll see each other very soon. Yes, thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.